Thank you. I'd like to call the village board meeting for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, May 3rd, 2016 to order with roll call, please.
Dudek.
Here.
Cavelli.
Here.
Kraus.
Here.
McAlpine.
Here.
Kozler.
Here.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to allow trustee Dave Chapman to attend tonight's meeting via teleconferencing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you.
You're welcome back with us. And would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will now go to open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I had one person sign in, but I think, Neil, you're here for something else. Is there anybody else here that would like to address the village board? Could you come up to the podium, please? You could just state your name and address.
I'm Tina Napolitano, 1373 New Haven Drive. I've been a resident here for about 5 years, and I just want to say that I'm opposed to the 5% increase on the AT&T and Comcast bill. I'm just learning about it. I don't have a lot of information about it. I'm trying to learn more about it, but I just see, any additional taxes is such a burden on us, and it'll cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. And I don't know if they're doing this because they know a lot of people are dropping cable and going to other methods of television. But I just think it's just a cheap, sneaky way to get additional taxes and bill us consumers.
Are you going to be here for, because we're going to talk about this more in depth a little bit later in the meeting. Can you stick around for that now?
Yes.
Otherwise, I can answer a question. It's not a new tax. It would be a new fee, a new franchise fee for AT&T only. Are you a Comcast
I'm
customer?
AT&T.
Okay. See, then we have to talk. I thought if you were a Comcast customer, we've had that fee in place since 1994. It's not a new fee, so,
And is that billed through the cable company?
yes,
And then you collect it?
correct.
Okay, well, I just need to learn a little more
Sure.
about it,
We'll
so.
be more than happy to talk about that at
Okay.
the time of the meeting, because we'll open it up to everybody to have a discussion,
Thank
if you're acceptable to that. Thank you. Yes, sir?
So when we discuss that, we'll be able to come up.
Sure. Could you come up to the microphone,
That's
please?
it, we're good.
Yes. Talk during that part of the agenda.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the village board? All right, we'll go ahead and close open forum. I have many things on my report tonight. I would like to invite Jennifer Myers to come up here, please. Beautiful flag. Jennifer is retiring from our ZPA. She's been with us. She was actually one of my first appointments when I became mayor, because you started right after that. We had the resignation. Somebody moved out of state. But Jennifer stepped in. She went through the interview process. Chairman Turney and I interviewed several candidates, and we selected Jennifer. She's been a great asset to the ZPA. We're sorry you're leaving, but we understand why. She's got little kids, and she wants to tend to that. Just one. So, but the service that you provided to those here was very important. I think you learned a lot through the process. You went through some interesting times, as did the village board. But we are truly thankful for the service and the time commitment you gave away from your family, and the time commitment that you devoted to the staff and the residents here. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. From this. Jennifer, I'm gonna get you that name. Okay. No, she's not here.
No.
And I'd like to call Joe Turnier, please. Joe Turnier has been with the ZPA for over 19 years. He is steered the ship of the zoning board for quite a few years. And without his diligence and his attention to detail, there's a lot of things in the village of Cary that wouldn't have happened. And we are absolutely thankful for him and his dedication away from his wife and his family. I think that's a testament to his character and how he puts the village of Cary first. And we will always be appreciative for the service that you convey to the village of Cary. And all I can say is thank you very much for the wonderful service.
Thank you very much.
Very, very much. Okay. The next is I'm gonna be making some motions to consider the new appointments for that. And I'm gonna go through the motion process first, and when we get through all the motion process, I'd like to call each of the new ZPA members up individually so we can introduce you to the community and the rest of the village board. Okay? I will entertain a motion to approve a 5-year appointment of Patrick Corey as chairman of the Zoning Board and Planning of Appeals with a term of May 1st, 2016 to April 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Chapman?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the 5-year appointment of D. Scott Pippin to the Zoning Board, the Board of Zoning, Planning, and Appeals with a term of May 1st, 2016 to April 30th, 2021.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Chapman?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Cavelli? Yes. Dudek?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
McAlpine? Yes.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the 5-year appointment of Neil Williams to the Board of Zoning, Planning, and Appeals with a term of May 1st, 2016 to April 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Chapman?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
McAlpine? Yes.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the 5-year appointment of Eric Kretschmer to the Board of Zoning, Planning, and Appeals with the term of May 1st, 2016 to April 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Chapman?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
McAlpine? Yes.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to call up the new ZPA members. We'll first start with Patrick Corey, who is a existing village board, a village ZPA member. He's been on the board for about 10 or 11 years now. This is Patrick Corey. He will be the new chairman of the zoning board of appeals. We're thrilled to have him. He will be a great asset, steer the ship as needed. I think that his professionalism and his depth of knowledge of the ZPA will take us to the next level that we need to be able to feel that you're in the capacity. So thank you very much. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to introduce Scott Pippin. Would you like to come up? You can bring up your wife. No. It's a family thing. Come on.
I'm proud of that.
Absolutely. It should be. So it's a proud moment. Thank you very much for stepping up. I should give you a little bit of a background on what we did. We had about 9 applicants that we went through. Actually, I need to give credit to Trustee Cavelli and to Chairman Corey that were able to get together and we interviewed 6 of the 9 candidates. And it was a really interesting process. I was convinced to do a group interview. I've never been involved. I've been in business for 30 years. I've never done a group interview. And it was really nice to be able to see how people interact with each other and how the board, that we as the interviewees interviewed and see how we all work together. It was a really great experience. I think that you would testify that that was a pretty unique experience. Have you ever been put in? But
It was a nice process. It was very good. Eric and I, who I interviewed with, will come up in a minute. kind of played off each other.
Mhm.
That was good.
It was good. It was a really interesting process, and I think that's a testament to how it's gonna be when you're moving along on the zoning board. So looking forward to joining you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And then we have Eric. Did you want to come up with your family?
It's not about me.
This is Eric Kretschmer. He is an architect. I should say that Scott comes with a background in public works. He's got an in-depth knowledge of infrastructure and just land use and all these other kind of things. So it's going to be a really interesting fit for us too. And then Eric is an architect, and he really kind of rose to the occasion when we talked about various issues when it came to things that happened on the ZPA. We had an in-depth list of questions that Kim, Patrick, and I put together for the interview process, and we asked everybody the same thing in the exact same order so that there was some legitimacy there. And it was really interesting to see how they reacted and played out each other. So we're thrilled to have Eric. So thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. And last but not least, we have Neil Williams. Yeah, and Batman. This is Neil Williams. He has a background, he works in real estate at properties. He has an in-depth knowledge of the real estate market and land use. He has a diverse background. He's been a resident for how many years now? About 7 years? About 7 years. So he has an understanding of what's going on in the village of Cary. He's got obviously 2 little kids that will keep him pretty happy and busy. But we're thankful that they stepped up and applied for the position. It was a really good opportunity for us. So we're looking forward to the great things that can happen with the zoning board of appeals. So thank you very much for stepping up. It's a big commitment. I know it's we talked about it's a 5-year commitment in that, but there's a lot of good things that are ahead for all of us. And I think that the professionalism that we have on the board, continuing on from what we've had before, will just enhance our abilities to make Cary the best place it could possibly be. So thank you guys very much for stepping up. It was a wonderful opportunity. Look forward to working with you. And if you have any questions, Patrick's your guy. We'll be talking to Jake as well as Brian Simmons. Brian Simmons is our community development director, so you'll be doing a lot of work with him too. And we're going to be setting up the training sessions. We're working on that as much as today to try to get the ball rolling in that. So we'll get everything set up. So thank you very much. We appreciate you stepping up for the village of Cary. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Bye, Batman.
Okay, got a couple more appointments here. I will entertain a motion to approve the 3-year appointment of James Levicki to the Police Commission with a term of May 1st, 2016 to April 30th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
McAlpine? Yes. Kraus?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
Cavilli?
Yes.
Kozler?
Yes.
Chapman?
Yes.
Thank you. And finally, I will entertain a motion to approve the 2-year appointment of Bruce Brandwine to the Police Pension Board with the term of May 1st, 2016 to April 30th, 2018.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Chapman?
Yes.
Kozler?
Yes.
Cavilli?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
McAlpine? Yes.
Thank you very much. Moving on, we've got a couple proclamations. Anybody want to read the Police Week? I've been doing a lot of talking here. People are tired of hearing me, but we'll go ahead with National Police Week, May 15th through the 21st of 2016, whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which May 15th falls in National Police Week, and whereas the members of the Village of Cary Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the daily lives of Cary residents, and whereas it is important that all residents of Cary know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifice of their police department, and that members of our department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence, disorder, deception, and whereas the men and women of the Village of Cary Police Department continue to provide a vital public service. Now, therefore, I, Mark Koenig, Mayor of the Village of Cary, call upon all residents of Cary to observe the week of May 15th through the 21st, 2016 as Village of Cary Police Department Week with appropriate observances, in which all of our residents may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to Cary. I further call upon the residents of Cary to observe Sunday, May 15th, 2016 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers across our land who through their courageous deeds have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community, dated this 3rd day of May, 2016. One more proclamation? Anyone?
I'll do it.
Bueller, go ahead, thank you.
National Public Works Week, Public Works Always There, May 15th through the 21st of 2016. Whereas Public Works services provided in our community are an integral part of Cary residents' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works services and programs such as water, sewers, streets and highways, and public buildings, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of the Cary community greatly depends on these facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skills of public works staff, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, he, Mark Koenig, Mayor of the Village of Cary, does hereby proclaim the week of May 15th to the 21st, 2016 as National Public Works Week, Public Works Always There, in the Village of Cary. And he calls upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions the public works staff make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Dated this 3rd day of May, 2016.
Thank you. And I would like to acknowledge our department heads who head up these wonderful services that we provide to the residents of Cary, Chief Finland and Director Morimoto. Without your guidance and your expertise, we would be nothing, right? So we are excited that you're part of our team, and you've really taken, both of you have taken our services to a new level in the Village of Cary, and I'm certain that the residents are proud to have you. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Now we'll move to a technology presentation from Prescient Solutions.
Thank you, Mayor. As the presentation is being teed up, just wanted to take a step back a moment and explain to you the services Prescient Solutions provides. Prescient is our outsourced IT provider, and through a series of transitions over the past 4 years, we've moved to their service level, and it's significantly assisted staff in upgrading the technology with the budget dollars that you do provide. We wanted to show you some of the action steps as well as the results of what has been invested over the course of the past couple of years, and let Steve Smith and Jacob Reif from our staff go through a quick presentation. After you, Steve.
Thank you. My name is Steve Smith. I'm the Account Relationship Manager. I'm Prescient for the Village of Cary. I will not read this stuff verbatim. I'll just kind of touch on really what these things mean for the village. Obviously, we commenced services January 1st, 2015 with a 3-year agreement. First year focus is always come in, remediate, stabilize, identify high priority risk, mitigate that risk, and move forward from there. So getting into accomplishments, this is really going to drive, mitigating your risk, ensuring your data is safe, the network is secure, and building a foundation that kind of, can be flexible enough to support whatever your needs are moving forward. System backups, that lends itself to making sure that your data is safe and that it can be recovered. And not only that, but ensuring that your technology can also be recovered so that it's not significant outages. Understanding that, every minute or every hour you're down, people can't work. Antivirus, anti-malware, that one's pretty self-explanatory. I'm sure all you are, understand the value of that, ensuring malware and, these risky things that the internet brings don't end up on your computers as one piece of security. Domain name system, really this one just kind of touches on, and it's going to lead into the next few, so I'm going to move to the next slide as well. The next few all kind of get into finding things that were, not configured quite the way they should be, and fixing them, remediating high priority risks. That DNS issue was actually causing issues for the police with the connection back to dispatch. It would cut out every time that the county did maintenance. It would cut out connection for the police officers. Obviously, that's not good. They can't get access to their stuff. So we were able to look at that and get that remediated and work with county to get that fixed as well. The Comcast IP block really is you just ran out of IP blocks. There was no more room for growth. Things were starting to get implemented in ways that they probably shouldn't have been. So we went and thankfully you were able to give funds that we expanded that IP block and we're able to start moving things back to secure side of the firewall so they're not on your network and causing high security risks. Moving into equipment replacement, really that touches on employee efficiency as well as security. Having aged equipment, old operating systems that Microsoft doesn't support anymore, end-of-life equipment that no longer meets the actual performance needs of what you're running on them. Some employees can be impacted when they're running software. If their equipment or the server that whatever they're connecting to isn't running properly, they sit there waiting longer than they should to be, getting what they need, employee efficiency. Also brings security. Those types of things no longer get firmware and software updates. Obviously, the longer you get out of date, the more exploits there are. Hackers and other things can find those. Moving into Hyper-V virtualization, this kind of moves into the foundation. Hyper-V really it's a cost-effective way to build a virtualized platform that makes you redundant, makes your servers redundant, they can fail over. It also makes it easier to back up. They're all on one platform. They can all be easily backed up, making your disaster recovery more efficient, as well as more efficient in restore because it goes back into a virtualized state, which is a lot more efficient, a lot quicker to back up and restore. The one thing I want to point out on some of these things, on the far side, you'll see cost savings. Cost savings are a little bit easier to identify. There will also be some things pointing out cost avoidance, things you don't have to pay for in the future as well. So the equipment replacement, obviously with the servers that we got for that Hyper-V implementation, we got Dell at the end of the quarter. So they actually gave a $2,500 discount on the servers. They also threw in the licenses for free. So that was a $6,000 cost avoidance you didn't have to pay. And on top of that, the operating system, the way Microsoft licenses their software, by not paying that $6,000, that also includes any server that we add in the future, you don't have to buy a license for. It's all inclusive in that base licensing. So moving forward, any server that we need to add is at no cost to you. And the final thing really here is just to illustrate, at 2 days a week for the first year, we were able to come in and close 227 help desk tickets to get you back. There's really no backlog. We're pretty up to date at this point.
I want to also indicate that the service contract is helpful to us because it's 24/7 callback. So if somebody's off on a Friday or if the 2-day-a-week schedule is, Wednesday and Thursday and we have a critical issue on Friday, they're back, physically or by remote or both. And obviously we run a 24/7 business with police, those kind of functions, and it's been helpful to have that on-call and then have the partnership with Deputy Chief Jim Fillmore in our police department, who has become a subject matter expert for police and helping interface with Steve and his team, as well as Jacob Wright on behalf pretty near the rest of the village. So I just appreciate the work that the team's been doing. Thank you.
Sure. I do have a couple just in-process things. We'll just wrap up real quick just to kind of show you what we're doing moving forward. These are the types of things moving from being reactive to being proactive, really. And, I'm not going to go in depth on any of these, just really quickly, understanding when equipment, instead of something getting aged and not being prepared to purchase for it, having equipment replacement plans, moving towards, understanding the cloud systems, going through them responsibly, understanding security, and letting Microsoft or somebody who hosts these things, do what they do. Leveraging them, they have a lot more resource dollars to provide you stuff than you do, so let's leverage that. And then really just moving forward, understanding the last piece is the flexibility of where you're at, and then understanding moving forward what I call a technology or a strategic roadmap. Where do you guys want to go in the next 3 to 5 years? We've built a foundation. We're getting ahead of things. We're being more proactive. Really, let's start defining the next few years, make it easier for cost, budget, understanding where you're going and how to implement it gives us plenty of time. So it's kind of just the tie-off piece for the in process, and that touches on the strategy moving forward, that last slide. At that point, I can take questions if there are any.
And I think too, I guess just in summaries, IT is something that we don't really get an opportunity to talk with the village board much. You really don't hear about things related to IT unless there's something that goes wrong, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. But at this point, we just wanted to get Prescient in front of you. If there were any specific questions that you had related to the IT infrastructure here at the Village of Cary, both Steve and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
This sounds like a real simplistic question, but I just, I need to know. So in the event we had a terrible storm or some sort of catastrophic event and staff couldn't make it in here, I assume that our system provides that they're fully functional from wherever they might be, whether they're in the home or sitting in some parking lot with their laptop, they can access everything that they need to access.
We're actually moving to that. That's going in. Two-phase, we will be establishing a traditional VPN for employees to connect, but also by going to Office 365 and SharePoint, those email and file systems can be accessed from anywhere. So yeah, that's the in-process part. Now that we've got the foundation, we move towards.
So right now, you don't have that capability, huh? Wow.
I can get into the files and the emails I need, if you're asking me.
Okay. I mean, I think all our departments important for obviously department heads to have that. So that's the direction you're going. Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Great job.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you for your time.
So far, I've been asked to pull off number 4 on the consent agenda. So let me call the motion. If there's anything else, I will address that.
Can we just pull off number 10 also? I just want to have a little talk about that.
Okay, so
Is there anybody else wanted to pull anything else off the consent agenda?
Which one was
4 and 10 were,
We need an IT guy right now.
right?
Yeah.
4 and 10 go.
Didn't work well.
6.
you okay?
Yeah.
I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items number 1 through 3, 5 through 9, and 11.
So moved.
second,
Roll call, please.
Kraus,
Yes.
McAlpine.
yes.
Dudek,
Yes.
Cavelli,
Yes.
Kozler,
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda item number 4.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Jim, you had some questions on number 4?
Well, yeah, I just wanted, I know we directed Chris to put this out there for proposals, and I'm just not sure the direction we're going with this, and I understand that the UDOs are sort of the wave of the future here, but Could somebody sort of explain what we're, as a village, what we're going to get out of this versus what we have now?
I can speak to that. Basically, the process would look at our existing codes and ordinances. So it would not be a complete rewrite of our zoning and sign ordinances, but it would look at our existing regulations based off the directives of the comprehensive plan and make sure that our regulations are in line with the type of development that the village would like to see moving forward. So we'll look at issues within the sign ordinance right now that do not comply with recent case law that exists, updating those regulations, speaking more towards the type of signage that the village would like to see in the community. But the way the process would work would go through a series of workshops where the public would be invited to attend and participate. They provide feedback on issues that they would like to see addressed in the code or potentially, types of development that the village would like to see, and work with, the zoning board directly on drafting the new language through various workshops, public hearings to draft regulations, and, come back before the village board with a final proposal. But basically would use our existing codes as the baseline and then rewrite or redraft portions of that code to speak towards the type of development that the village would like to see moving forward.
From a resident and business point of view, it should also make the codes easier to work with and more predictable and easier to understand the process that people will have to engage in to get approvals, because each of the codes right now is independent of each other, and by going through this process they'll be integrated and work more hand in glove.
Is this something that we would be able to do, like take the sign part out and work on that individually and then look at another part and work on that individually as opposed to doing it all as one?
But I think, the UDO would be updating all three of them at the same time to be one document, but certain components of that could be talked through at different phases of the process. The way the current consultant was looking at the process to do so, they would have a public meeting with residents and then also with businesses. And the businesses would talk with, speak towards issues related to signage, zoning matters that would be affected their potential development or issues that they see with our regulations. So I think they both would be discussed in hand going forward, but you certainly can focus discussions on certain areas more. If there's a particular issue that the board has or various members of the community has that could be a hotter topic, if you will, that would be more discussion related to that.
Did we ever get any information in terms of what the other proposals looked like? In terms of cost and what they were proposing?
Yeah, we had an interview team that went through them in detail and scored and completed interviews. So that was, part of the process that staff completed for the board. We had, I believe, 4 submittals.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And there were finalist interviews, thorough process, and the cost budget was in fairly comparable zone, but it was about approach, the type of folks assigned to the project, their interface with legal, those kind of issues. So we felt that the Housing team was the best. That was the staff's recommendation. We had, as in its second comparison process back in, I believe in 2014, before we started the comprehensive plan, we had completed a proposals process for this as well. At that time, the board at the time tabled that work because they didn't want to do the comp plan and the code update at the same time. So we had some experience from that, some of the same competitors back for the same work. But I believe the budget is sound. It's a huge project. It's a gigantic project, independent of the work that the consultant does. It's a gigantic project for the board and for the community and for the staff. Doing it integrated makes a lot of sense in that you touch it one time. I think we're talking about a 14-month window for the life cycle. That'll lap into the next village board. So that's some of the feedback.
And what was the reason then we chose Housing Levine? Just because they were familiar with us from the comprehensive plan. I wasn't really pleased with the comprehensive plan process, so I don't know if I'm really comfortable with this group doing this one now.
Can you speak, Brian, from the summary of the interviews as to why Housing was selected?
Sure, basically, we had the 4 applications that we received from 4 different planning firms, all which, are very qualified, have done this type of work in the past. Staff, upon the review of the applications, we narrowed it down to 2 applicants, which was Houseel's proposal, and then also Tesca Associates, along with Ansel Glink, to review their proposals. We've invited both firms in to provide presentations as far as how they would approach the issue. Both very qualified firms. We felt from a staff perspective, the fit of Houseel, already having worked within the community, but then also their approach would be a better fit for the community from a standpoint. But either one of the 2 firms, I think, could very, very well do the work, and we would end up with a valuable product at the end of it.
What exactly is the process they use to change the code? So are they having workshops, or what I'm getting at is I'm only 1 vote, she's only 1 vote, and if we change 100 codes, I might not agree with half of them. So we're looking at a comprehensive change of code in which I cannot pick out what I don't like or what she doesn't like, so.
Yeah, from the process, they would have, again, 2 or a couple of open workshops for the community to partake in. So the board members would be allowed to participate in that as well. Most of the discussion for the zoning code update would actually transpire during workshops before the zoning board. So there would be a lot of discussion during public hearings to discuss regulations, drafting potential, requirements to go into the code from that standpoint. We also have a steering committee from a staff perspective that would be heavily involved in the process, working with the consultant on language before we get to that hearing process. And then, staff would also give updates throughout the process to this board as well, as far as where things are at in process and items that are being discussed.
I would also like to add that to address the trustee's comment, as we did with the comp plan, there are different ways to split up the work. And in that example, we had a subcommittee that involved every taxing body in the town that came to the table and had some involvement in its process, and it was brought later back to the board after it went through community workshops, zoning representation, those sorts of things. It goes to the zoning board, but I mean, there's no reason we can't have a working team off the village board if 2 folks want to take on a project and look at this specifically on behalf of the board. That would be appropriate. And clearly it goes through zoning in that process and has to, but there's 2 task assigned trustees that might be a way at this where there's that level of feedback. On the comprehensive plan, there were trustees allocated to the committee. This is more detailed code specific work, so there may be some of you interested in that and others not as much in specific terms. So that's one suggestion, and that would be welcomed by the work group.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that this isn't something that's just done and then presented to us, here's the new code,
No,
Yeah,
this has been, this is like the 3rd part of the thing that the last board we set out to do is once we had the comprehensive plan, and then we were working on the municipal code, which was outdated, and this is the final part of that to bring us all up to date. And there is a great opportunity to be part of that process if you so choose. I mean, you've mentioned that there's certain codes that you may not like. That's something that we can address. This is something that we need to do. We've got a new zoning board. We've got great opportunities ahead for us, and this will kind of close all those cracks that we have, so to speak, and it'll give us a better opportunity to move this village forward into the best way that we can by touching on all these different things. We found many different issues with our municipal code that we had been complaining about for years, and we were able to fix those along the way. And this will give us another opportunity to further enhance the progression of the village of Cary. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I would strongly recommend if you want to get involved in that depth, that's a great opportunity for you.
Mayor, my recollection's not 100%, but I think when we went through the municipal code too, we got red line documents that showed all the changes that were
Yes.
being made, Jim. So it won't be just something that arrives on your desk or at your computer and here's the final and you have nothing to compare it against. My recollection is we did have red line changes that showed all the modifications that were made before.
That's correct, and most of that was window dressing, just getting it onto the internet so it's accessible. That was phase one. This is a code blow up. It truly is. I mean, it's way overdue. And so, I mean, we would welcome the time involved in this to do it once, do it right. It's an enormous amount of work, but it's a legacy document for this village board in terms of what the community has needed through at least the last 3 to 4 years of elected officials that I've been here. This has been on the list. So if Trustee Kraus, Trustee Kostler, or others would like to volunteer for a task force on this, I'd welcome that.
Yeah, I would absolutely volunteer for that. And Trustee Dudek, I wasn't referring to changes being made without my knowledge. I don't want there to be a packet of codes handed to me that I have one vote, yes or no on. So I think it should be a process, and there should
It
be
is.
a
We'll
lot
get
of-
updates throughout it's going to be a good year and a half. And they say 14 months, it's going to be a year and a half by the time. And we will get updates as it goes along. And feel free to ask those questions as we get to the certain things. Like I know that there's several of us interested in our code, for our sign code. And those are things that, some people care about that, some people don't. So I strongly advise and welcome opportunities to participate in this process. It's interesting. As dry as it is, it's really interesting.
I think we need to be clear on what the comments are about, and it's fine. I mean, we have some feedback that was the comp plan not reported back to the board enough during the process. That's fair. And are there ways through quarterly updates or every 2-3 months to come back with check-ins with Houseal's team? Absolutely. I mean, it's a huge effort, and as it carries out 14 months, there's the need to have everyone engaged and aware of what's going on because of the decision. So, I mean, I think we just continue to learn from past experience and make sure we accommodate what the current trustees are asking for. It's no problem.
If I can just add a carryover from the previous board, one of the things in the 3 years that I've been around talking to businesses that have businesses in other towns, they're like, well, that's, not how it is, where I have my other business. And the other instance is contractors that are working in Cary. We will benefit greatly because we'll have a code that's easy to understand. It'll be online. It'll take archaic codes and bring them up to date, which our business community has been asking about. So I think it's a great time to do this and tackle it.
Trustee Cavelli?
So if this process happens, once it goes through, what happens from here on out then, as codes change? Does the village just update codes as they change? Do they go by the wayside and then this happens again later down the road? What happens after this process is done?
It's like with the current code, it's at any board at any time in the future could modify the code through a text amendment process. So it's not go through the formal process of doing a more unified update of the code. There always is the opportunity to modify a code if something gets updated and that doesn't work the way that the village is envisioning it would work. So as we have going through the process now, there's a text amendment that our staff is proposing that we discussed before the board in January to form some minor tweaks to the code as it currently is. That process still exists going forward beyond the update. This is a more comprehensive review of the code, so it looks at kind of the directives of the comprehensive plan and then how the village wants to continue development going forward, looks at our regulations holistically versus microscopically to see how the code is drafted to speed towards the type of development we want to see.
So then if a decision happens like with the sign ordinance, would you guys just update it then after?
Any
goes through?
any updates would have to come back through the board level here. So any
Right, but it wouldn't be through a consulting.
No.
Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a minor change that the board, wants to propose for a modification of the sign ordinance, that can happen anytime and goes through the process. It wouldn't be a full update of the code. We can change one regulation is to change the square footage of a sign permitted from 75 square feet to 100 square feet if you wanted to do that. But it would have to go through a process to make that change.
Yeah, the idea is that at that point, it's refreshed, the board sets the baseline, and we carry it forward.
Okay. And what was the cost difference between the four? I didn't see normally we get the different costs
They're all in the same range, around the $95,000 range.
for all the same services, I'm assuming?
Correct. It was all to do the same updates. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Roll call, please.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Chapman?
Yes.
Cosler?
Abstain.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Thank you. And then finally, I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda item number 10.
So moved.
Second.
Jeff, you had some questions on this?
Yeah, I was just wondering, is this something we should be doing before we even decide if we're extending the mining and that? I mean, does that play into their decision whether or not they're going to, want to allow us to annex that property into the village of Cary if, the lake is smaller, if the mining doesn't go as long as it's supposed to? Do they just want to get rid of it?
Who's that, Algonquin?
Algonquin?
I don't think so. We went to talk to them because we were asked to by the Village Board of Cary. And obviously, these pieces are truly puzzle pieces, and not all of them are put together yet. And sitting here tonight, I'm not absolutely certain May 17th, the Meyer thing will be back to you. And at the same time, from our debate and discussion about the annexation approach, there does appear to be some commercial development benefit to the village regardless of what gets decided. So my view is that they're two separate actions, and regardless of what you decide with Meyer, I think this is in the best interest of the village of Cary to get cleaned up. And you ultimately would be approving any kind of boundary agreement at this board level anyways, along with their board. So I see, some multiple meetings of discussion that I'd like to proceed with and not lose time on.
No, I don't disagree with you either. When we're talking about the properties in question, though, are we talking about the ones that are all of the developable property that's currently in Algonquin is what we're talking about? What about like the Route 31 that we have going up? Is that part of the cost sharing? Are they going to be able to then take anything?
We're going to have to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand the question. And, that'll be a logical part of the discussions. And I don't see anything other than honest discussion and debate between the municipalities. I see what you're suggesting. And we're going to have to look at that with village council, and their council, and just make sure that there's clarity that both boards can, sign on to. Obviously, that piece on 31 that's on the map is not in incorporated Cary now, and it's viewed as a commercial development site, so there's some value there that we don't have now in our corporate boundaries. But your point is, what is in our corporate boundaries, does that, as part of a larger development, does that impact us? I get that, and we'll make sure that we address that when we come back to you with comments and make sure we protect the village's interests.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
This is 31.
I was a little bit confused on this, so I did ask Chris, and Adam, maybe you can help me as well. I must have been reading it way late at night because I lost a few things. So basically, this is an agreement that's kind of making a delineation of Clausen Road North and Clausen Road South, in essence, right? Isn't that what is said on page 3 in the 1999 agreement in paragraph 7? Isn't it basically the same thing that we're...
I thought I had seen something like that too, like 1994 or something, or maybe it was 99.
What confuses me is they start talking about Track A and Meyer, and that's where I think the difference might be, but I'm still a little bit confused on it, Adam, so I don't know if you can help clarify that at all.
Brian may
I have not looked at the historic agreement.
Brian has a comment.
Yeah, the agreement basically established Clausen Road as the border, but the subject portion of the property, that's the Meyer piece that's mine right now, was also part of the agreement. So the border was Clausen Road until you got to the Meyer property and then went up into the Meyer property. I don't know if it's shown on the exhibit, but it extends to where the existing boundary is between the two villages in the middle of the Meyer site. So the agreement would need to be modified to change the boundary from that existing line back to Clausen Road to be consistent across the entire east-west stretch.
So then the 1999 agreement in paragraph 7 is basically saying Clausen Road North is Cary with the exception of Meyer. Is that what Chris is saying?
Correct.
And then our new ordinance, or our new resolution rather, is suggesting we're throwing that language out and the whole thing is incorporated into Cary as
Correct.
being north of Clausen.
Yeah, the agreement basically would need to spell out that the border would be Clausen Road between the two villages, and that the portion that currently is in the village of Algonquin that's north of that would be disconnected from Algonquin, and then the village of Cary would be able to annex that property into our
Okay.
limits.
And then along the same lines, and Chris, I think you shared this with me even though I didn't ask about it. The reason I asked this question to begin with was I didn't understand why we were going to be giving away sales tax if the original agreement already said that property was ours. So that got clarified somewhat with Chris, and again, now with you, Brian, so thank you. But Chris also mentioned to me that the sales tax that Algonquin would pick up in this sales tax agreement is going back to be maintenance, fund maintenance on the lake.
They said that they would be open to discussion about that if there is a park plan, which I have to show you under my report tonight, occurs. They might be willing to dedicate that back to a park use. That was said verbally within the last 60 days.
So how would that be memorialized if we approve this? Because it's not in this,
Well, I mean,
right? Or am I
I think we're
missing
looking at all the documents as, in good faith, the two municipalities have indicated that there might be some housekeeping out there from a zoning standpoint. And that clearly is an issue, as well. And there's clearly not a dedicated funding source other than our matching funds and our land conservancy account for grant matches from the state and federal government. So any kind of contribution would be useful. You may remember that they also mentioned that if there is park development, that they might like to have the same rates charged for their residents, if there are any, as Cary residents. And, hopefully as the region develops, that's viewed as truly part of both towns. Maybe both towns will pitch in some way. So, I mean, it's designed to be step one of a multi-step process. We understand that in the meantime, the mining extension hasn't been voted on or finalized yet, but we see this as being benefit to both communities now, so.
Okay, well, for whatever it's worth, and when you clarified that piece for me, that to me
Yeah.
is really important.
Okay.
Because for.
The money.
Yeah, I just was having a hard time giving sales tax, whatever it might be, whether it's $1 or $100,000 is immaterial, but giving sales tax back for properties that they likely can't, get physical improvements to very easily.
Utilities.
Right. And if this makes it all happen and whatever is derived from that sales tax comes back to maintain that property, I think it just defers the residents of the village of Cary from having to do that. So I'm all in that way, but I appreciate that clarification, Chris.
Anything else? Okay, roll call, please.
Kraus,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Cavelli,
Yes.
Dudek,
Yes.
Chapman,
Yes.
Cosler.
Yes.
Thank you. Just as a matter of housekeeping, I will read up. We were to consider approval an ordinance granting an amendment to the existing conditional use for mining and material extraction granted under ordinance 0080210 for Meyer Material Company Limited Liability Company. That has been continued to May 17th for a matter of record. Moving along, I will entertain a motion to approve Resolution R16-05-04, authorizing the village administrator to execute an architectural and site engineering design services agreement with Muller and Muller Limited, Chicago, Illinois, in the amount not to exceed $254,230 for work associated with the Cary Metro Station improvement, and for authorizing the village administrator to approve a 10% contingency for unforeseen changes in scope for a maximum budget price of $279,984.02.
Thank you, Mayor.
I need a
So
motion.
moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the village board. We've gone through this at committee level, including my distribution of the draft agreement. We have Director Morimoto here and the team from M&M Architects to present to you, but at a high level, this is a design contract, design and engineer the proposed station on the inbound side of the tracks, along with the warming shelter improvement. As you've received from me through correspondence, we've received a letter yesterday from the CEO of Metra regarding the project, and it's clear that the $2 million grant, which is federal money, stands. At this time, costs above it are ours. We'll never say no to more meetings about help with construction dollars if we need it with Metra or other entities over the course of this project design. But you saw the letter that indicated their support to construct this and their support of this design agreement. This was bid using the federal process guidelines. We interviewed with trustee assistants of Trustee Kraus and Trustee Chapman, the competing firms. Mueller & Mueller's agreement was recommended and negotiated through that process and protocols. Director Morimoto and I are happy to answer any questions. We have some slides that you've seen before from the standpoint of the project itself, but we're here mainly to answer technical questions and support any dialogue that you have along with the design team. So happy to open it up to the floor for questions.
Any immediate questions?
When you guys did the interviewing of the different construction companies, designers, have you seen any of their work? Do they provide you with stations that they may have designed elsewhere?
Yes, as part of the process through the request for qualifications, the consultants were asked to provide proposals and provide portfolios on their past experience. That in the scoring and the ranking process for the projects, the portfolios and experience in similar projects were 25% of the scoring.
Okay.
One of the highlights of Muller & Muller's proposal was their in-depth experience in past Metra and other commuter rail stations, but in particular their experience in dealing with stations with specific site constraints similar to Cary's, specifically very narrow and long footprints for the buildings themselves.
I have a very high regard for your computer acumen on design, but I think it would be very helpful if we would see some of those to get an idea of what their vision or some of the projects that they've done in the past would look like.
Go ahead. Do you want to put the slides up?
Yeah, for through the visioning process that's part of the project approach that Muller will have, they will obviously gather input from stakeholders and particularly from this board. So the specific elements and the design, the styles obviously can vary depending on what's unique and desired by Cary, not necessarily what's limited to, say, transplanting an exact replica of a station from town A or town B. We will get the A-list version for town Cary. But to that end, just a couple examples of what they have provided for other clients. These are just two of the stations that they had developed. And actually, I can bring up Jay Muller and Ken Korab from Muller & Muller for if you have any specific questions about these stations or the other stations they have worked on.
So those are two long, thin designs that you have there, two projects you guys worked on?
I believe the Prospect Heights one in particular has a 14-foot depth, which mirrors the concept footprint that we have in place for our right-of-way.
Yes, Jay Muller, Muller. These are older examples. A number of stations we work with, and this is on the Milwaukee District, and that's Prospect Heights is on Norfolk Southern. Both of them, looking at Google Earth, when we put the proposal together, it looks like we got about 26 feet from the setback of where we have to be back from the center line of the track to the curb, round figures. So taking a setback we may have to have along the highway 31. We end up with stations that are going to be long. So it presents challenges to introduce the railroad vernacular that people think about with stations, but we were able to accomplish some things there, and we're also are doing 4 stations on the high-speed rail line to St. Louis, which has similar constraints, more driven by Union Pacific's desire not to really have any stations on their right-of-way. So we've dealt with this, and we have a kit of parts of how to go about getting Metra's requirements in there, getting the village's requirements in there, articulating them with, making them site-specific to carry.
As you mentioned, there's several other stations they've worked on, and we asked all the different proposers to provide, like I said, a portfolio. As I mentioned, the process will involve getting our indication of what style we want. So by all means, if you don't consider these examples dramatic enough, this firm has the experience in not only rail stations, but also other work where they demonstrated their architectural ability to incorporate that. The other one is not on the slides, but one of this is your high-speed rail station.
Yeah, this is Carlinville, which is going out to bid tomorrow. It's probably not something that would fit in this context up here, but again, it's another very narrow building constrained by the right-of-way down there. We have to deal with Metro, we have to deal with the UP. Probably these stations now with the amount of glazing, you'd probably want more glazing than that in terms of security, the ability of police to drive by and have a look in. That's become an important determinant in our design process now. The durability of the materials. These are all things that will play when we start design.
So it's not terribly unique then to build thinner, longer structures?
No. It's been done before.
I think, and just to emphasize, these projects are, dated, and the architecture is under your control. Of course, budget ties to that. So, I mean, the space layout is what it is, but the design you're going to have a lot of input into because it's going to be potentially a hallmark for your downtown. So it shows that it can be built, and how you want it to look is up to the village board to carry.
I appreciate that you have experience. I didn't know how commonplace that was to have, something long and narrow.
Yeah, there's those two. There's probably 4 or 5 others. We were working on one in Blue Island, that's on the Rock Island District. That's sandwiched between the Iowa Pacific and Rock Island's terminal line down there. Some places you have a lot of room. If you have a big parking lot next to, we did Hanover Park years ago, and they had a big parking lot, so we were able to do different things. Right. But we've done 35 or 37 metro stations over the years, so we've seen most of what we can see.
Any other questions?
I think I'm planning on voting no on this, and I hope you guys can prove me wrong. And it's not necessarily the size only. I don't think moving it to the other side of the tracks down there solves the problems though that we have down there. We have the congestion, we have the crossing of the grade. To get to the other side, all of our parking is on the other side. I would prefer to just fix up the current station and put in the 2 warming stations on the other side and work with your firm that way, and see some changes to the current building. We're still going to have the crossovers and that, but we'll see. Hopefully, I can be proven wrong.
I think you will be. Any other questions? Roll call,
I'm-
please. Oh, Dave? Sorry, I
Yeah.
thought you were sleeping.
No, I'm watching. There's a little delay between the committee meeting on that video. I am gonna vote no, and again, it's not against the design firm. It's against the spending of over $1 million for something which is going to look good. I'm sure that it will, but it's the reason to spend the money when we need to look to the future, and that is that ticket agents are going out of style. They're going out of fashion. They're being removed. The one was just removed in Harvard. And as people get more and more digital and connected by their smartphones and things, there'll be less and less need for having a ticket agent. And UP sees that. While they have given us a vote of confidence to keep the agent here in Cary because of our ridership and because of location, and I appreciate that. And it's good to have our community recognized for that. But the issue is that we could accomplish what we want and what our residents want, and that is to have a place for them to wait that's out of the elements. It'll be nice. The warming shelters look great. It'll be an excellent addition to our downtown without us going ahead and tearing down the existing building. And I would ask the board members to support using the $2 million as is.
Regardless of votes, I mean, we want every village board member that's interested to participate in the design process, and appreciate your support to this point. Glad to have you involved at any level you want to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
Chapman?
No?
Cosler?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Kraus?
No.
Thank you. Looking forward to working with you. Thank you very much for your participation. Moving ahead, I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 016-05-05, an amendment to the village code to impose a cable video service provider fee.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are you going to start at the door?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, members of the village board. This has been brought to you through various levels of discussion. Previously, the village board had decided not to charge AT&T customers a franchise fee when this was brought forward to us within the last year. And that decision was implemented. There had been some discussion and debate about how to handle Comcast when this was brought back to you on the Comcast front within the last 60, 90 days. The decision of the board at that time was try to leave AT&T alone, leave Comcast alone. Comcast presently is at 5%, and that is essentially a tax of those Comcast subscribers in Cary. And that revenue source, which is around $250,000 a year, is a funding source to our general fund, which funds police services, public works, snow plowing, finance services, all the general services of the village. That's a revenue source to it. It is essentially a tax. The issue came when, at the same time, we had a franchise agreement with Comcast that was coming to expiration, and negotiations were taking place with Comcast, and it became evident to them that there were different tax structures, or I'd say franchise fee structures within the village of Cary, and that has been raised to us through essentially bargaining with Comcast about how to handle them moving forward in a longer-term agreement. These franchise fees are present in Cary. The Comcast agreement is since, I believe, 1994 is at a franchise fee. Typically, municipalities charge franchise fee due to the use of the public right-of-way for the equipment that is provided to allow the service to exist. Right or wrong, that's what it's been for historically. And as new cable franchises come online, AT&T is one through the UVerse product that has come forward to many municipalities, not in Cary, but wide open west, is to our south in other municipalities, franchise fees have been addressed, similarly. And why Comcast has asked us to reconsider this is because of the perceived inequity. So I want to make this simple. We want to answer your questions directly. Myself, Jacob Reif, Attorney Simon are here to go through these two items with you and respond to your questions.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Just to give you some historical perspective, the only reason that this ordinance needs to be addressed is because of AT&T's lobbying power. In 2007, AT&T wanted to get back into the video business that they had sold to Comcast. And so the prospect that faced them at the time was going to every single community and getting a local franchise. They didn't want to take the time and the money to do that, and so instead they lobbied the state and got a law passed that allowed them to get a franchise from the Illinois Commerce Commission instead. And because they were getting their authority from the Illinois Commerce Commission instead of from each individual community, they renamed this fee a video service provider fee. And so, except for that state law that allows them to go to this ICC instead of to the village board, they're treated virtually identical with a cable company. They're subject to the same customer service standards. They provide largely the same services and the same products, same programming. It is by and large a distinction without a difference. And so in order to have the village code mirror the two avenues of authority in state law, this ordinance would levy a service fee on people who get their authority from the state instead of from the village.
Any other questions from the village board? There's a couple residents. Would you like to come up to the podium, please, and state your name and address? Get some questions. No, this young lady over here.
Another gentleman.
Oh,
Sure.
okay.
So I have a question. So I originally voted against the AT&T tax. So what does this mean for the village of Cary if the AT&T tax doesn't get passed and the Comcast tax does not get passed?
Sure. I mean, we just completed the budget process. The budget went into effect about 48 hours ago. It's a balanced budget. A 250, I mean, just looking at the Comcast piece for a moment, AT&T is about, as proposed, 35,000. That's not in the budget. That's not assumed as a revenue. From a 250,000 standpoint, you're looking at positions. I mean, you just aren't. We have vacant positions right now that we believe we need operationally. I have one police position vacant right now by resignation. I have one public works position vacant by retirement. I have a part-time customer service representative vacant by resignation to move on to another job. I have an intern position that's vacant. If I added all those up, and I can't tell you that operationally, especially on the police one and probably public works, that I can afford operationally to be without those. If I add up the dollars from all four of those, you're probably at $175,000, $180,000, because some of the cost or revenue is not to the corporate fund, especially for the public works position that is somewhat utility driven in cost. But I think it's about $175,000, $180,000. If you took all those positions and they were gone. I mean, that gives you a sense of our budget and its level of tightness. There's, of course, ways to just stop projects on some things to get you to a 250, a 300 level. As we talk tonight, and that's just assuming you do it by attrition as opposed to layoff. From the standpoint of the AT&T piece, there is no direct nexus to the fire dispatch issue, and I understand we need some more due diligence on how do, 10 agencies in Red Center and Northbrook, some of which just have fractionalized dispatch, how does it work for them but not for us? But, I mean, when that decision comes on the table, it needs a revenue, and it is about what the AT&T franchise fee is. And again, those are two mutually different decisions, but that's something towards what this would go to, which it might preserve unfractionalized dispatch for our residents. So I have to look at it that way because of how we balance this general fund. I mean, it's balanced to the dime. And you can always say no to certain projects and you can always find money, but it's got to be sustainable money, not just one-time projects. It's got to be most likely positions. because you got to cover for that every time. And the board has been at, rightfully so, at a flat property tax level this year. And I believe over the time I've been here, our average is about 1% on the property taxes. And we know that that's a controversial issue. And we know, we talked earlier tonight, that the municipality has more than just property taxes that subsidize its operations. We have state shared sales taxes. We have other revenues that come in that also have their threats. So, I mean, this is not looked at as being inconsequential to those that are paying it. I mean, it's important. The issue of comparability from my standpoint is it appears that we can't be in a position to charge one AT&T 0 and one Comcast 5. You probably have to be the same. And if you change the 5 on Comcast, I mean, those are about $50,000 increments per 1%. So, I mean, that's just the finances.
So then, in other words, more than likely, you would be talking about staff cuts because you would need something more sustainable over time than just a simple project for 1 year.
You would ask me if this was the decision that you made to go back to the drawing board and come back to you with recommendations that you as a board as a whole would decide. And I'm explaining that there certainly would have to be some positional change to be able to compensate for that kind of revenue loss that's already been budgeted for, you know, and needs a change. You can always make changes. It gets to a place of what are the trade-offs, what are the services, what are the staffing issues that we have. I mean, I'll tell you, the police position's not going to be on the table, but that's what that is worth in raw dollars, and that's what those dollars go to subsidize now. We've done a good job here. Our headcount is down. We've been recognized regionally in headcount reductions. We're down to 58 full-time positions now. The village in 2006 had 89 full-time positions. We now have 58. Every business, every government has shrunk. I mean, through the recession, there's no doubt. But we're doing more with less. We're snipping service levels where we can without impacting, you know, frontline things that our residents care about. And we continue to make change every year to how we do business. So it's not a small, inconsequential sum. It is not designed to be untransparent. It is essentially a tax. And, you know, both of them are. So those are my answers.
You know, we have to be, I think that this board and the previous board looks at every nickel that we spend every which way to make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. And when you start totaling up our revenue sources, which are limited, I mean, we do have serious issues that are facing us. You know, the state of Illinois is in horrible disarray. Just for a matter of argument, our general fund budget is about $8 million. We get some shared sales tax, some shared income tax, which is LGTF, which is the local government distributive fund, which is $1.9 million to the village of Cary out of that $8 million. So that brings us down to $6 million. These are serious numbers. These are serious times. And the state of Illinois is threatening to take that away. All of it or a part of it. And as our administrator has updated us, and you know, our budget is balanced to the dime. Since over the last 2 years, our property taxes went up $8,000 as a whole for the entire community. This past year, it was $0. The year before that, it was $8,000, and that was just towards new growth in the village of Cary, in our corporate boundaries. So when you look at that, we are very cognizant of the taxing. I've had conversations with several trustees about this, and you know, one, you could look at all the different things that we have to pay. Unfortunately, government has to rely on taxes to get these things done. We provide a high level of service in policing, public works, and administration here at the village of Cary. We run a lean machine. One of the things that this board is very proud of is the fact that we are down to 58 people doing the exact same work, if not more, than we had when we had almost 90 people 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, those are staggering numbers that we have to realize when we're looking at things. You know, we don't have the capability to cut any more in our policing. Then our service levels will start to be cut. We don't have any wiggle room within our public works to cut any more staff. If we do, our service levels will be cut. I think that, you know, Comcast had stated that their average cable bill is about $78 in the village of Cary. So that in turn is like a $3.12 a month or whatever it was towards the residents is essentially is a user fee, a tax. It's not unlike the MFT funds, which is the motor fuel tax funds that we get, that it comes back to the Cary so that we can improve the roads that you drive on. You know, it's not unlike the tax that the state gets for the gas tax that they put on there. It's about, out of a $3 gallon of gas, I think 48 cents of that is taxes. It's absurd, but we need to provide infrastructure and stability within our communities. And these are if we were to take away the $250,000 now from the Comcast agreement, and if the state, which is in such dire straits, implements the reduction in $1.5 million, I don't know how we're going to be able to operate effectively and provide the quality of services that the Village of Cary is expecting, and that we work very hard to make sure that we give a good quality of life to all of our taxpayers. You know, we're all taxpayers here on this board. We all have a great commitment to the Village of Cary. And these are things that we look at every single day. We are a non-home rule community. We cannot just increase our taxes because we need more revenue. We don't. We are restricted in this capacity. This is one revenue stream that we have that has been in place since 1994. And it was only brought to our attention that it needed to be addressed because really it wasn't fair to AT&T. Why should they be exempt from the user fee when all the other customers from Comcast are paying that user fee? And unfortunately, AT&T has decided that they don't want to expand in our corporate boundaries. They are at their max. They are not going to, because we have customers that want them to get to their neighborhood. But they said no, they're just not going to do it. So we have got to be cognizant of the fact that we have restricted revenues. We are at a bare minimum when it comes to staffing, and I think that reducing our revenue stream for the Comcast will have an adverse effect to the quality of life for our residents. And I'm a firm believer in that. You know, we make decisions here based on the revenues that we have, and we look for things that all the time for outside funding. This board has been great about getting outside grants. You know, in the last 3 years, we've probably almost $8 million in grant money that's outside of our monies that we have, that we're able to do other things for the Village of Cary that doesn't cost our taxpayers any money. So I understand that there is a group of people that are not happy about this. Some people think it's a new tax. It's new tax for a user fee, or they call it a franchise fee for AT&T customers, but it's a continuation of the same franchise fees that our current Comcast customers are paying right now. So that's my spiel.
Okay.
Yes, sir, would you like to come up to the microphone?
My name is Carl Wegas. I live at 6 Shover Court, and I've spoken before you before. And I want to start off by, first of all, thanking you for the opportunity to speak, and secondly, to commend you and the board for the way you look after our financial welfare. I think you do an excellent job, and I understand exactly what you're trying to do. And in the spirit of that, I approve of your efforts. But I have a couple of questions to try and get it straight in my mind, because I'm hearing Comcast and AT&T. For AT&T, are they already through the state getting a franchise fee, or is the state getting it and I'm paying it because AT&T doesn't give it to me? So am I already paying this kind of fee to the state?
The state doesn't collect any money from AT&T.
Okay. All right.
The state grants them authority to operate and provide video services to people who choose to pay for it. But local municipalities who would have gotten the franchise fee had they gotten a local franchise are allowed to collect the fee from AT&T, so there's not a loophole.
Okay. I appreciate that. That clarifies some of it. So if it's passed, then there would be just the one fee, 5% maybe. Right. The next question is, what about Dish TV? Are they not equal with Comcast and AT&T?
A couple of reasons why they're not equal. Federal law specifically prohibits us from levying any fee on DirecTV or Dish Network. So there's that factor. And furthermore, neither one of them use the roads and the right-of-way in the village to provide services. It's all satellites. And so since they don't use the right-of-way, they aren't charged a fee in exchange for the right to use the roads to provide services.
Okay, appreciate that, which leads to my next question. Currently, I have 2 AT&T lines to my home. One is just family phone, and the other one, I have a small consulting business, and I have a direct DSL line for my internet service. But I get my video through DirecTV. If I were to eliminate my lines and get my internet through DirecTV, and my wife's got a cell phone, and eliminate, then there would be no impact to me at all. Is that correct?
First of all, this fee is only charged on that portion of your bill that relates to video programming. It doesn't relate to DSL or phone service at all. This only relates to the portion of the services that AT&T provides that are video programming, the cable
Video.
service.
Because they own DirecTV, then does it apply to my DirecTV
No.
video bill?
No.
No.
It does not apply to any fees for DirecTV service,
Okay.
even though AT&T now owns DirecTV.
Yeah, it gets confusing, and these companies keep messing around. As best I can tell then, it basically has no impact on what I'm doing currently, and I appreciate that. I am in favor of the village policy of trying to handle our finances in a conservative way, but at the same time providing, my wife and I have lived in 5 different states. We've moved 12 times. We've probably owned or rented 20 homes. And I can tell you, we've been here 20 years, and this is the best village board and the best community we've ever lived in. And we appreciate what you do. This came new, and I just had these questions. I appreciate you answering them for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Did you want to address the village board? Either one of you?
What is the, are you proposing 5%?
Come up to the, could you come up to
Yes.
You're proposing 5%?
the 5% that would.
On AT&T.
On
On
AT&T,
just like Comcast.
just like Comcast.
So there'd be a net increase.
Yeah, it's estimated on the AT&T piece at
30
30 to
grand.
35,000.
Right, in
And as
addition to the
As I
240.
briefed the board tonight earlier, and decisions haven't been made yet, we may already have a place to spend that on police and fire dispatching services.
Okay. You all made great arguments. You've obviously read the social chatter. I'm sure a couple of you got emails. Not sure who did or didn't.
They all did. They got the copies of what we were sent.
Okay. I think one of the things that brought this to the forefront was that people didn't know what it was for. And when you toss around a comment like, it's been that way since 1994, that doesn't mean it's right or it was upfront. I have clients, and they'll call me with dilemmas. Should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? I have an opportunity to take advantage of something that, that'll work. I can take advantage of it because I'm in a position to do that through fortune or, whatever. But the question is, should I? Because something about it doesn't feel right. And I'll tell them, well, go back to what's the right thing to do. But again, you guys have made great arguments. I get it. I've also heard the argument that the 5% is arbitrary because that's as much as we could charge. By law, that's as much as we could charge. And I'm assuming it's the same way with AT&T. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it
Okay.
matches.
So if everybody agrees that this is an indirect tax, and when I look at my home tax bill, it's crazy I did this, and you look through every little thing, you don't see AT&T or Comcast on there. I'm just kind of becoming aware, because I'm new to this whole process, just kind of becoming aware of how do you identify all of these taxing authorities. They're spread all over the place. You really don't know what your taxes are. And this is one more kind of pit that's falling through that loses visibility, yet contributes to our village and what we're able to do. So I get it. I wish there was a different way to collect it. And, from a base standpoint, I am having such a hard time rationalizing how a company like Comcast can say, we'd like to do business in your village. And the village says, sure, you can do business in our village, but the trucks are going to tear things up, you're going to be digging, you're going to be doing stuff, and we need to be compensated for that because we're going to be bearing the burden of that expense. Is that kind of the concept? Is that an accurate portrayal?
Yeah, there's some value that we provide in the public way that allows them to exist, to provide any
Sure, you exchange compensation for value. We want to come in and sell our services. Great, you're going to make money. We're going to have a little bit of, we're going to have a little bit of burden. Pay us for it. What I can't get my head around is how did it go from, yeah, we'll pay you to do business in your city, and then we actually won't pay you because we're going to collect it as a franchise fee from the customer. They're not paying for anything. That's what I don't get. I can't wrap my head around. Is that mischaracterized, or am I missing something?
I think when you look more of it as like a user fee, you go to the grocery store and you buy something, you get taxed because you're using it. I think that's how I come to grips with it. I just had a conversation with somebody about this earlier. And you have to look at it as because you're asking for a service, you're buying their product, and you're paying a tax to use their product. And that tax comes back to us, just like when you buy gas, a percentage of that gas that you buy comes back to us, and we use that for our roads. There's a lot of things like the LGDF I'm talking about is your state income tax. Part of that comes back to us. So we utilize that to run our operation. So I know it seems frustrating. I've been frustrated with that too, and usually on your bill, and I went toe-to-toe with this before, but usually on your bill it will say franchise authority is the Village of Cary. So on your bill, it'll say a franchise fee, and it says the franchise authority is the Village of Cary. So I think that if you look, I know it's, and they put everything very small. I get it. And, it's all totals up,
Yes.
I get it.
I have a sensitivity towards user fee, okay? Because what the heck am I paying them for? I order internet and cable, and they charge me $80 for this and $40 for this, and then there's, FCC fee and communication fee and this and that, and then user, it's like, I'm already paying to use the service. It's like when you go to pay at the DMV, or, you pay a fee for something. Ticketmaster is a great example. A convenience fee? Who's it convenient for? You or me? Seriously.
I understand.
But it stinks that there are more suckers than there are, people who will stand up for, not taking BS, because that's kind of what it is. I apologize. I just have a hard time rationalizing how a company can come and say, yes, we'll pay to do business in your area, and end up charging the customer. I don't understand why you can't say, great, pay us, and the customer doesn't see the charge back. You still get your $250. But Comcast is paying out of the profit that the consumer is paying for the service. And yes, they're scared. They're losing people every day because of alternative means of entertainment. So I don't know if this is, the final hurrah and, stick it to them while you can, or what the deal is, but why can't they pay for what they said they'd pay for, and why do we have to make it so the Comcast essentially doesn't pay anything? That's what I can't wrap my head around. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me.
So we don't have any control over whether Comcast collects it from the consumer. They make that decision. The federal law touches upon this question. The village decides what the franchise fee is, and we levy it against Comcast. Under federal law, Comcast has the ability to reimburse itself from the subscribers for the cost of paying the franchise fee.
Do you get this? Does this make sense? Huh?
Most people are doing that. What's going to happen when you don't have that income?
Could you come up to the microphone?
I can't wrap my head around it.
I totally agree with
your points that you made, and thank you for stating them the way you did, because you did a much better job than I could do. But I'm just wondering, if this is a franchise fee that they're charging us, does NICOR charge us this franchise fee? ComEd?
Yes,
What are the rates that they give you?
they're varied.
It's on your bill.
They're all
Can you
varied.
give me on your bill?
I don't have that data right here.
1%, 2%, 3%? Is it less than 5%?
We have it on our website. I'd be glad, I just don't have it off the top of my head to put it on the record, but there are percentages. I'm glad to email those all to you for the
It's on
utilities
the
that have
website, I'll
charges.
find it.
Yeah,
But I'm
I'm
just
glad to.
wondering, do all towns have to go through this? All towns pay this
Yes.
user fee
Yes,
in addition to everything else they pay on their bill?
yes.
Anywhere in the
explaining that.
United States?
As a concept, as the mayor had indicated, we are what's called a non-home rule community in the state of Illinois by the Illinois Constitution, which means that by population, we're subject to what's called PTEL, the Property Tax Extension Limitation Law, which is a good thing. It limits what our increases could ever be on property taxes to a CPI factor, or also an amount that can be from the growth in the EAV. So we're limited on that. And there are many municipalities that are not, that are called home rule communities. We have neighbors, Crystal Lake, Algonquin. They, by law, they can raise property taxes to an unlimited level. We cannot. And so if we were home rule, we'd be able to possibly, if this was a philosophical taxing decision of the board, tax for it through property taxes to make up the difference and take it off the utility bills. You could do that. You could make these zero, which would then pass it to everyone equally, regardless of their use of the service. We can't do it by state law. I'll
Because
explain to you, there aren't
Comcast
many,
bills you for that.
well,
That's why you can't do it, right?
no, it's because of our own rules on property taxes that wouldn't give us that option. And I'll tell you that, I mean, we make policy here, the board does for Cary, not Crystal Lake, Algonquin, but they have these charges on top of having home rule authority. Doesn't make it right.
It's
But we're
complicated. and
limited
it's
to be able to correct
It's way
for it.
beyond my means.
And we don't
Just
need to-
taking it down a step,
To answer your
it's
question,
just a fee that you guys are allowed to receive, that Comcast and AT&T are allowed to bill to the customer.
Essentially, yeah.
yes.
Okay,
And
thanks.
you asked how prevalent this is? More than 99% of the communities that have cable service collect a franchise fee.
I would be interested in knowing those percentages.
I think it's over 99%.
No, I mean, the percentage that they collect.
It's by and large 5%. I mean, there are some who are beneath that, but by and large it's 5% because that's what the limit is.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
And to answer that question, talking with Comcast today, they had stated that all the communities that our rep works with, they're all at 5%.
Thank you.
We have testimony.
Thank you for your excellent work on the budget. You really did prepare, and you really said, you know, I was like, man, I want to tear into them, and then they're like, crap, man, they did their homework.
Come to my office.
We're used to
They're
it.
selling me. So I'm like, you know, what can we do? I understand, I get it. But is there any reality where we look at a compromise, because taking the path of least resistance is the easiest thing to do. You know, going to the maximum of 5%, yeah, great. You know, it's easy to maintain the status quo. You know, you did your budget, you didn't include the 30 grand from AT&T.
Right.
So.
I would tell you that I'd be willing
You
to
know what I'm saying, right? 3%, 3%.
I'd be willing to revisit it. It's the board's call, not mine, but I mean, at budget time, it's
Be
appropriate.
different, man.
After the franchise agreement is
Do
off,
something.
after franchise agreement is off the radar and that's done, I mean, there's still our ability to make change to the ordinance. And one of the challenges we're dealing with is a calendar issue with when this franchise agreement came up with this thing. And as we reset our math, the state settles out on our sales taxes, you know, we have some more certainty about our budgeting. I mean, I'm glad to bring it back every
The
March.
perfect
for
time to do
budgeting.
this is our budget season, which is in March, when everything is laid out. We look at every nickel and dime that we have and what the projects that we want to accomplish, what our revenue sources are. When we're literally 3 days into our brand-new budget is not the time to start looking at these things. And it's, you know, it's one of those things where you've got to take care of the situation you have right now. I would be more than happy to look at, and I'm sure the rest of the board would be more than happy to have a conversation about this during the budget season, which is March, April.
I think I'll leave you with two things, okay? Number one, a compromise on a percentage, not just to be different, but to show everybody that, not that you don't care, but, you know, that you kind of care. Number two, the renewal for the Comcast is a 7-year deal. Technology moves way too quick for 7 years. I think, you know, is there any way to reduce that? Because that's a long time, especially speaking about technology.
If you're concerned about whether or not the 5% will last all 7 years, it can be reduced during that time period.
It's not set by agreement.
Like the toll booths.
No, it's a separate ordinance of the village.
It's toll booths. Yeah, we'll just, you know, put the toll booth up, pay for the roads, take the toll booth down, right?
No, it doesn't work, they're not around here.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate you coming in and sticking around all night. Was it worth it? Good. We're not so bad up here. We're going to call a vote.
I think Jim has something.
Mayor, no, I would like to hear from Trustee Chapman on this and the budget shortfall and how we're going to make up on that.
Trustee
Sure.
Chapman?
Hey, thanks, everybody, and thank you to the residents who came and emailed about this. And again, as much as this is a conundrum to that resident, it was a conundrum to me 7 years ago when I called the village and asked what this franchise fee went to and how did it help me. And so I still have that question 7 years from now. And the reality is that, yes, it goes to the general fund. Adam, you made a comment that said Comcast is charged to use our streets. But the truth is Comcast isn't charged to use our streets. The residents are charged a fee for Comcast to use the streets. And that was part of what my information campaign on this issue was about. And it wasn't started 2 days ago, Mark. As you well know, I spearheaded and led that effort about AT&T. If we could not, as a village, tell our residents what the charges were being made for, then maybe we shouldn't collect a fee. I also made the suggestion that I agreed with Comcast in one aspect, and that was that we should have the AT&T fee be the same as the Comcast fee, and then that should be 0%. To be told that Comcast came in and demanded that they receive the same treatment as AT&T was a little bit unsettling. But more than that, some of the intricacies of this process. And I'll ask a question of Administrator Clark. How did Comcast find out that we were charging AT&T 0%?
Public meetings, I'm sure. It's online. They're negotiating their agreement with Kerry. They're certainly talking the industry. I mean, that'd be my guess.
Okay. What a wonderful thing that Kerry is talking about, you know, being the first one to break that mold. And more to that resident's suggestion, what I had asked about is there is a different way to collect this fee, and that is to ask for the real costs that would be incurred. And I asked, how much are those real costs? How much does it cost Comcast to be on our streets? If we were to come up with, you know, a dollar amount, how much would we charge them? And I asked that that question be put to AT&T, and I understand it was, and Jacob gave testimony at the meeting that AT&T replied back that it wasn't in their business model to, you know, pay a user fee to operate within the village, but that they would accept taking it back from the franchise fee. I assume that that's the same with Comcast, although I could not find in the email correspondence any place that we asked Comcast that question, and that was something that I did ask that we investigate. And maybe...
Yeah, not everything's emailed when we work with utilities.
I get it. I'm sure there were some that maybe were phone calls and things, but I sure wouldn't mind being the one who the town, not me, the town that makes these things public. I have no problem. As I did, I conducted 3 polls online, and while it was limited responses on the public websites and Facebook, 85% of the residents of Cary that responded back said that they didn't even know that this franchise fee existed. And this certainly, and I know none of us were here in 1994, again, I asked, why do we charge 5%? And the resident hit it right on the head, because that's the maximum that we can collect. So to have a business, and Mark, you talked about paying a user fee. Sure, I don't mind paying a user fee if I'm using something and that's benefiting me. But that user fee that I pay doesn't go to the Village of Cary. And that, again, was the point that I wanted to point out is, while we do have a 5% tax rate for our on the resident's tax bill, there are additional taxes that are received, and the residents should know about them. And if they choose to support them, hey, that's great. But the fact is that most of these, the man who has the AT&T cell phone, isn't it true that the village collects a percentage of the cell phone fees in Cary?
Yes.
Okay. And so, Mr. Resident there, I forget your name, but yes, you are paying a tax to the Village of Cary for having a cell phone. Same thing with electric, same thing with NICOR. And again, as long as the residents know, hey, that's half the battle. If we can take this and say, make it, 3% so that we match the amount of money that you're talking about, Chris, you know what, maybe that's a compromise. And the question to Adam is, you said that we could, on an annual basis, adjust our ordinance, because I believe that would have had to have been agreed by Comcast. I don't know why they would have any reason not to agree with us.
The village has a discretion to lower the franchise fee from 5% anytime by adopting an ordinance reducing it. And Comcast will accept a reduced franchise fee.
Well, that's great. And all I would ask as trustees, as a board of trustees, is to look at these type of things as much and as well in our residents' interest as we do look at the budget. And I commend staff. They have done a great job, and I have nothing but good things to say, and I have throughout this entire process. The fact that it's
Hey, Dave, a
the
question.
fact that, we're on a month-to-month agreement, doesn't bother me. That's something so that we do have time. We're not losing anything by, voting one way or another, and we certainly wouldn't lose anything next year if we revisit this at the budget meeting. And again, I'll continue to ask the residents to come out, get involved, come out in March when we have our budget meetings, and pay attention. It is out there, and I'm ready to take your vote.
Trustee Chapman, Trustee Dudek has a question for you.
Yes, Rick.
Well, actually, it's a comment, but more Trustee Kostler had the question, which I didn't hear answered, which is, if we do take it to zero, as you're supporting, we consider, then we have a $250,000 hole in our budget, and how do we fill that? And you haven't given any suggestions to that.
I did, and I did answer it, and that was something that was not put to Comcast that I know of. I'm trusting that it was put to AT&T, and they said no, and the board said, well, forget it anyway, and that is, what does it cost them? What is the actual cost, and charge them a user fee without it being passed on to our residents. If they want to put it in their bill, then that's a decision between the Comcast user, the AT&T user, and that company, and it takes the village out of the picture. If it costs money for the village to have or if it costs Comcast money for their trucks to be operating in the village, then we should charge them whatever it costs. So that was how I was addressing is how it could be filled, Rick. Is we charge them the actual cost that would be incurred.
Well, I guess I would say, Dave, that's maybe a different way to view this and a different discussion, but I think, for my time on the board, and I know serving with you on several occasions, we've had conversations about home rule and the Village of Cary actually looking at home rule. And at the end of the day, you only have so many sources of income. This is a source of income. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It's not hidden. It's on bill. I pay it just the same as everybody that has sent us emails either in support of it or against it. And you know, the fact of the matter is you go see a movie at Crystal Lake, you probably pay 35 cents of your $8 admission as an entertainment tax on the ticket, but it doesn't say it on the ticket. I mean, those are the kinds of things that are out in home rule communities, numerous other taxes than we have here. We don't have that ability, but yet we provide $8 million worth of services to 18,000 residents every year. So I think, you know, at the end of the day, I'm going to support the 5%. I know it won't be popular. I don't particularly care to pay it either, but I think it provides more than we can eliminate at this point in time by having to shave staff or some other items that we have in our budget. So that's my position.
Thank you, Rick.
I just have a couple points to make. During our last meeting, I was a proponent of a $250,000 impact fee to the developer that would have been a stopgap for this type of situation. The majority of the board turned it down. Instead, now we're going to have a room that may get limited use, and we could have used those funds to offset what our citizens are paying for this fee, but that is now passed. I see these fees as temporary, that technology will override collecting these fees and probably 10 years down the road. Streaming services wirelessly will be available, and we're not going to be able to collect this fee. So I think we need to find a way to phase it out gradually. And I would be in favor of decreasing the percentage so that we can phase this into our budget gradually so that we don't have to cut personnel and we can deal with this in a logical manner instead of just cutting the head off right away.
Would you be willing to offer that tonight as an amendment, Jim, to 3%?
As I said, may I interject something here? As I said before,
$100,000 a year.
Again, I think that we had discussed that if this is something that the board would like to do, the time to do that is at the budget, during the budget season, when we have everything laid out and we can figure out exactly where we are needed and where the funds are needed. You know, we do have some opportunities to recapture things. Jim, to your point, the $250,000 impact fee, we're still getting $150,000 of that, and that's a one-time fee.
Well,
this is going to be perpetual.
But okay.
So, you know, we need to, you know, sure, it's great in theory to eliminate it for 1 year, but what about year 2, 3, 4, and 5? Let's talk about real figures here. Since I've been mayor, our pension obligation for the police department was $450,000. This year, it's like $780,000 that we're supposed to do. And they say in the next 2 years, it's going to be $1 million to get us caught up by the state statute that mandates that we have our pension almost fully funded by the year 2040. And that's right around the corner. I mean, so these are not small numbers that we have to swallow. And, you know, I'm all about let's look at things in a realistic way and reducing fees. But, you know, I appreciate people being in here. I can't tell you enough, the people that I run into in the street, I said, come to a meeting, explain what your thoughts are. Let everybody else know. Just don't tell me. But I had 5 emails. There's 3 people in the audience. This tells me that it's not heavily weighted on the community, that either they just don't care or they're oblivious, or it's just, you know, it's just something that they don't really, they're looking for the board to make these decisions for them to help us, you know, create these, you know, these stopgaps that we have to perform all the time. So I think that, you know, when you're looking at that and you're looking at things, and people have asked me, when I was just downtown the other day, and they're asking about what was going on, and we talked about the franchise fee, and they said, well, what do you use that for? And I explained to them what it's used for, and they're, oh, okay. You know, it's not like we're, you know, doing some frivolous things with this. Those are real funds solving real problems on a day-to-day basis with the Village of Cary. And I would be more than happy to talk about this, speaking for myself, I'm sure the other board members may do that as well, is talk about it at the budget time to look at, some sort of a reduction. But, right now, I think that we are facing some critical times, and we have some things that we need to get accomplished. And, we're spending a lot of resources that are spent in a meaningful way. And I just think that this is something that we just need to move past.
On a point of order, Mr. President, I had asked Trustee Cosler a question and I didn't get an answer. And
would you care to rephrase the question then?
Well, I heard you, Trustee Chapman. I guess I need clarification because the motion says an amendment to the village code to impose a cable video server and a service provider fee. Is this setting the percentage?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't say that.
It's in the background.
But
and that's why I said it would be appropriate for an amendment.
I would be willing to amend it to 4%.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to change the motion to 4% for the service provider fee. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I have a question. If we were to do that, then we have to take Comcast down to 4% also, correct?
Right.
So you're talking another 50,000 out though to do that, correct? Or is it,
In ballpark terms, it's probably 50,000 on the Comcast side to the negative, but you're picking up
30?
4% of,
Not even
on the AT&T side, so it's probably in the whole 30,000 annualized. But again, you're already in May when it's implemented. How much does it hit the current year budget? Around 30,000.
Could you come up to the microphone, please?
First of all, I think a lot of people weren't here tonight because they really don't understand the issue. I was one of them, which is why I wanted to come tonight. But I think if they do understand it and they do know that you could have charged 5%, but you discussed it, you talked to people, you talked to residents, and you came up with a 4% figure, I think that will go a long way with residents, and they'll see that as a positive reflection of all of you.
I just want to point out, it's not in back and forth with you at all. I mean, just, you were in your budget workshop in March. We addressed some of the systemic issues that we have, and I'm not talking about the state at this point, but from the standpoint of the police pension fund, you had some thoughts about going to a 7% assumption rate on the investment rate return. We're at 7.5. Every 0.5% is probably a couple $100,000, per 0.5%. So make the decision you think is valid, but that's on the table unfunded, and you just need to be cognizant of that because that's not going to be able to be picked up through the property tax levy.
Any other discussion on the amended motion?
The 3%, Chris, I just did some quick math. That makes you, if you did your budget to the penny, the 3% makes you a little bit lean, a little bit scary. The 4%, I think, puts you in the ballpark to where you are if you were penny to penny.
Yeah, it's not far off.
Any other discussion on a yes vote would mean to amend the motion to allow a 4%. Roll call, please.
This is on 4%.
This is to amend the action from 5% to 4%. There will be a subsequent vote on the ordinance itself.
Okay. Dudek.
Thank you. So I have one question before I give my vote. We can change this the next budget season,
yes,
correct? To 5%, should we want to do that? Correct.
Or a different percentage.
Or different.
But up to 5%.
Yeah.
All right. This is not a very fiscally responsible answer, it's a politically responsible answer. I'll go with 4 on both. So I'll
So it's a
agree,
yes.
yes.
So yes.
Okay. Cavelli?
Yes.
Kraus?
No.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Chapman?
Yes.
I would have gone for the 3%.
You could still do that.
I just have to call a roll call for as amended.
Yeah.
I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 016-05-05, an amendment to the village code to impose a cable video service provider fee as amended
So moved.
Second.
to the 4%. Roll call, please.
Okay. Kraus?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Chapman?
This is on the AT&T.
Well, it's all or nothing.
Oh, I thought it was 2 separate ordinances. I apologize.
They are 2 separate ordinances, that's correct.
Right.
It's on the 4%, Dave.
Down to 4%. And we have to
Okay.
charge the same for
AT&T.
AT&T.
Yes.
Yes?
Got a yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Got it.
I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 016-05-06, a cable franchise agreement with the Village of Cary and Comcast of Northern Illinois Incorporated.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Wait a minute, do we have to change it?
No, we don't.
No,
Okay.
we just did.
You have discussion?
Let me clarify how this is going to work. The agreement is going to say that the franchise fee is up to 5%, but that the village will charge them no more than the highest amount they charge any other video service provider.
Got it.
So we have to leave the agreement at 5%. In reality, they will be assessed the same that we assess
Okay,
AT&T.
thank you.
Roll call, please.
Kraus?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Chapman?
Abstain.
Really?
After all that.
After all that, yeah.
Cosler?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the residents that played along with us. We appreciate your input. Pardon me?
Absolutely.
That's what we're here for. So we're here every other Tuesday.
What?
Please, please.
Oh, aren't they? Oh.
Thank you. Now moving to administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with the easy ones and we'll work our way backwards. From the standpoint of Meyer material before you this evening is the park plan latest draft. That's an exhibit. It gives you a document to share with residents that may have some questions. It's conceptual, but it's the finalization of that phase of the work. I did speak with representatives of Meyer Material today, Randy, Willie. They're quite frankly delayed from the standpoint of getting corporate response. And, I'm still concerned about May 17th even in terms of having the item on the agenda. I'm not asking for decisions tonight. You realize that June 1st there's a penalty provision. And I've said to you, offline before, I believe that should be enforced. The delay that, quite frankly, I believe was caused by not submitting the petition in September isn't created by the Village of Cary. Waiting to January, February is what happened, and here we sit. So that's, my positioning. I have gotten response back from the Park District on some of the deal points now regarding the bike path I just received late last night. I've shared our position to Meyer as it relates to financial terms, but need a response. So I'll continue that dialogue. I can't commit to May 17th at this point based on what I heard tonight from Meyer. We'll make every effort to do so and bring it to your agenda as soon as we can. Any questions on Meyer? I wanted to explain that we have a developer interested in a large part of the Westlake subdivision, and which is common in this environment where you have basically a subdivision that was vacated by a prior developer when the economy crashed. I'll say in the 4.5 years I've been here, I haven't seen anybody seriously looking at this as long as we've had that property. We now have somebody that's put a letter of intent down and is talking to us about our impact fees. Brian, do you want to kind of give just a high level of where that conversation went?
Sure, we've had very preliminary conversations with the developer. They're looking at purchasing either half or all of the remaining subdivision, where the village has not issued a building permit for a new home in the subdivision for over 10 years. What they've approached us at is the market that they're trying to sell a similar product of a two-story townhome with the impact fees that we currently charge. Will put them above the price range that they believe the market can satisfy or can absorb. So they have preliminarily asked for inquiry to potentially have a reduction in what the impact fees are that we would collect for the project, and that's not specifically for impact fees that we collect for the park district, school districts, fire districts, and also there's an annexation fee that the village collected as part of the annexation of the parcel as well. But they've preliminarily asked to discuss the impact fees, which staff is looking into what other communities have done to further development, for stalled projects from that standpoint, to see if there would be any feasibility on our part to do so. That might be an ask that would be before this board, possibly within the next month for consideration.
Any comments on that? Any thoughts? Impact fees are a controversial topic, so we'll try to frame it up for you and bring you back the action items.
Yeah, more in the future and more information.
Yeah, no doubt. Last thing that's immediate is, you recall we had the Saturday recycling event that was very, very, very popular.
Very well attended.
We had approximately, last year, 71 or some odd vehicles. We serviced 315 vehicles this year. We were proud of it. You saw the photos, lots of televisions. At the same time, Village of Huntley had an equally swamped event, and then this past Saturday, Algonquin Township had their event and backed up traffic both sides of Route 14. So we're seeing, because of the change in the state of the laws, these events are being populated by people from all over. Now, I have a list, probably 30 to 35 deep, of calls from residents that I've been talking to one-off. Mostly it's televisions. Shredding's always great. That's more of a bonus. There are banks and other entities that provide shredding. The issue is, if we have the event, how to do it. We're going to get swamped again. We could split town in half. Then you have to deal with, who invades it. I mean, we basically have identification at the door, and we did it our own event. We do that here now. It would require probably 2 Saturday events to split the town up between now and August. We can do it. The risks are still the same, that you have a lot of supply, that's pent up. Advanced Disposal has been gracious with us, our garbage company. My biggest concern is employee injuries with this work. Anybody getting injured, frankly. But, particularly public employees, gets quite expensive. And from the standpoint of Advanced, they gave us extra equipment and labor for our event. They've offered it again. They suggested more of a short notice. We're having it on Saturday event, calling our list, and then maybe a day or 2 in advance, putting word out quietly that we're having an event, drop it off from 8 to noon on Saturday, as opposed to a mass publicized letter sent to the whole town, word getting out throughout the whole region approach. Now, that's a pro and a con to that somebody's going to miss it, somebody's going to be out of town. But from a manage it standpoint, that might be an approach to go, and you knock it out in one day and you're done. And I think that from a cost effectiveness standpoint, they'll pick up more cost to that. We do 2 or 3 events, we're going to be paying for that. Any thoughts?
What does Advanced do with the electronics? Do they recycle it, or do they
Go ahead,
Do they benefit
they
from
came
it?
in to testify to us during and after the.
Yes, Advanced Disposal assists us with the collection and the haul away. And then Advanced Disposal is required by law to utilize a licensed recycler of electronics. So there's a specialty aspect to the processing and handling of those materials because they are banned specifically from landfills. There are obviously some other ways we can also adjust the program moving forward. There are a variety of electronics that actually are allowed to be put in landfills. A bulk of the list, our list mirrored what the township does in their specialty collections. A lot of the items, or some of those items on that list could be just handled through your regular waste collection normally. Yet, obviously for many people, the perception is that you need to separate it out and do it separately. TVs are by and large probably the biggest volume of what we're seeing and what's pent up in demand, and specifically what are banned from the landfills. So from that perspective, that's how Advanced Disposal handles it. The state, maybe Attorney Simon can pitch in, the regulations and the laws regarding how that recycling occurs, that's what's changed, and that's why you're not seeing the Best Buys, the electronic stores that are taking them for free or maybe cheaply taking them back for recycling. That avenue was probably the most common reason why they're stuck in people's houses. You put them out for the trash, they will be tagged by Advanced or Waste Management or whatever firm it is in whatever town. They will get tagged because the haulers know that they cannot put those in landfills by law. So that's why many of us do have the TVs that we do have.
So when we pay for this event for a dumpster for electronic goods is priced differently than a dumpster for garbage. I mean, is it cheaper because they recycle it and they make money off it, or is it more because it's hazardous material?
No, the costs for, I don't believe it's a money generator because the cost to do the recycling and that process is higher than whatever we're being charged for the haul away and their labor. The costs are on top of that.
It's a service to us as a corporate client, 7-year agreement.
Okay.
And, we'll maximize. And they came back into us and said, look, we saw what you went through. We're happy to help you. But, I mean, it's just how do we run it efficiently so we don't create the same tidal wave effect.
My only concern is, while I understand that process saying, hey, if we wait and just don't really get the word out, I feel like we're not being open to our residents. I feel like I don't want somebody to feel like they're being hoodwinked and didn't realize now I missed it. I missed the last one. I waited in line for an hour and a half, and now I'm not going to get to the next one because I didn't see that came out 2 days before.
As long as we don't get yelled at if there's a long line again.
I know. And I think that the issue is making sure that gets out there the next time, saying, listen, last time people came and, you better get in line really early. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's like going and getting in line for tickets to something really exciting,
And we can have somebody mark the last car in the little clock, put a tag on there.
Yeah, there's ways.
The last car, drop off what you have.
There's way to do that more efficiently.
Right.
And we might want to consider also putting a limit on the number of TVs.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
I think a
we didn't
limit.
know it's a high
limit in
percentage
They do that
of.
with paint when you're doing it to the township. There are limits. I think, maybe we incorporate a few of those things.
Yeah, the amount per vehicle we saw at this event compared to the previous year was exponentially higher. Each vehicle on average had a lot more TVs than past years. So making sure that the people down the line can get through the line, I think maybe limiting it to a reasonable number of TVs would help.
Sure.
Who was checking IDs?
Nicole, our administrative assistant. We had essentially all hands on deck. We had 11 people ran the event this year compared to 6 the previous year. 4 were supplied by Advanced Disposal. The rest were Public Works Department, hourly and salaried staff both.
Wow. They did a very good job.
So what are we being told to do?
Do you want to wait for a couple months before we do this again?
I say carpe diem. I think people are frustrated the ones that didn't get in. So I think the sooner you do it and you say, we've addressed what your concerns are and you didn't get in, so we want to, I'm not, I know that's asking a lot for other people to do it again. I'd be willing to volunteer and check people's IDs.
I'd come down and
I'll come in.
I'll do it.
I'm just saying.
But I could come with 5 TVs and if I.
No, I'm just saying if we have to identify then if there's a limit.
The problem might be limiting how many things people are bringing.
Yeah. But I
Well,
think
I
you
heard
just
there was
identify-
trailers full of stuff. Maybe we need to
Yeah.
limit that.
That's just,
The issue is, once they get in line, Mayor, they're in line, and it's not, from a traffic standpoint, real convenient to have people evicted from it. I mean, there's an inherent amount of education that we can do. The issue is that you will have some of that go on, and it's
You will.
almost unavoidable when you have it.
you will, but you know, someone can't really argue if you say, here's the rule. I mean, let them
Sure.
argue, but my point is if you go to Algonquin Township to turn in your paint and you have 9 is the limit, if you got 11, you're taking 2 home with you.
Sure.
I think that that's fair to our residents to be, you know, in full disclosure, say, here's what we can do. And
Sure.
we need to make it so that everybody that wants to be able to utilize that has that opportunity.
So can you get some dates in the near future from Advance?
Yeah, and it's from ourselves as well. And we're going to be cautious with volunteers simply because of the injury factor. It's not that we don't want help.
That's why I said I'll check IDs.
Yeah, and that's a
I
significant
won't get injured
issue.
on that.
I think, you know, from my perspective,
I have insurance.
I think the location wasn't desirable. I mean, I was in the line for an hour and a half, and if I was one of the residents living on that street, I would have been really upset. In fact, if I was the fire department or the police department, I would have been equally upset, because in the event there was an emergency there, you had issues. And so that was one. I think separating paper and electronics might be another idea, not having them in the same place. And I also mentioned to you, Mark, while I was in line,
He's
Stuart,
texting me. I was not in town, so I'm like, I missed it.
that I, you know, I was just telling Kim, the guy right in front of me in the passenger side gave his driver's license to the driver. So the driver was not from Cary, the passenger was. And this guy was loaded up with TVs. So, you know, there's other ways to control it. Maybe you limit the amount of TVs, maybe even a small fee, you know, a $5 fee to help recoup some of the cost of this, or maybe extra containers or something from Advanced. But the spirit was wonderful. But Public Works, I think it's challenged the way you had to drive in, drive through the building, and then when you came out, you were right in all that traffic. I don't know, maybe the metro station might be, I don't know.
Would you prefer to have us work with the township and try and look at that event at that
But you
location?
saw what they did over the
I
weekend. They
know.
had something that was the same thing. It's all
They
backed
did.
up.
They did. We subsidized some labor for that event to help them take some of that volume off. So we're doing other events as well. We are challenged by a different site, you know, from a traffic standpoint.
I would say that while the Public Works area is, generally speaking, maybe in a lot of communities would be an ideal spot, where ours is located right in the middle of all those townhomes, and the way that traffic backed up, boy, if I lived there, I'd be very upset. In fact, I bet maybe more than half of the calls Mark might have got were people who had nothing to recycle, but they just lived in the area.
I totally agree. We are limited by the public, or I guess the locations that we could host it that would have a sufficient queuing length to handle that. Even if we, I forgot the exact number of feet. We actually measured approximately how many feet the queue went, but we were in the thousands of feet of length of cars that were lined up. I think no matter where we relocated to, we would impact the public road. Obviously, we have to
Because I
choose
in some of those
wisely.
pictures, my office is on Cary Street in Cary Point, and that's almost to Jandis. There was cars packed past there. Then you got to go all the way down to Detroit, go all the way around to Detroit to get to Cary Woods and get to Public Works. So that's a substantial backup, substantial. And we did it when we did it several years ago. We did it at the Kraus Senior Center, and it was a command performance. All the elected officials had to show up for it. We had to check people in and, you know, go. I mean, it went, but it was from 9 to 3, if I'm not mistaken. It was a longer period of time. It wasn't a 2-hour window, but it screwed up traffic on Main Street, and you know, going through they tried staging them, getting them through. So I mean, from a logistics point of view, I think Public Works is good, because you have, since it's on a weekend, you're not getting a lot of traffic on the industrial portions of those roads, but you will be doing a great inconvenience to the residents if we weaving in and out of streets somewhere in town.
Could we do it when school's out and use one of the school parking lots? I'm just saying Cary Grove's got a huge parking lot.
I still feel with the length we saw, if we had even, maybe not the same demand, but a similar length, it would overwhelm that parking lot. It would be on Three Oaks Road and beyond.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure. it would.
Even with that parking lot, that's
I'm
how
just trying to come up with
big this
location.
was.
What about collaborating with another township? I know Algonquin Township uses, or Algonquin uses Algonquin.
Aaron, could you come up to the mic, please? You know the drill. She's our regular.
Aaron Hauk, 1332 Galway Drive. I know Algonquin uses Algonquin Commons, and they also do an all-day-long event, so it's spreading people out over a time, and that Algonquin's common parking lot is huge, so. And now that we're besties with Algonquin, maybe.
Money's no object sometimes, and I mean, here it is. So, I mean, we've tried to supply and demand as best we can. Obviously, we've got a change in law that's affected this, so we'll do our best. We'll bring you back recommendations May 17th. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's all I had. Thank you.
Department head reports. Did you have a question?
She wanted to say something.
Uh-oh.
I was in that line too for a while when I left. But I was thinking maybe another idea would be to have a special pickup. Like, do you remember the post office collected bags of food on certain days? Maybe we could have a special pickup for where we put our electronics out and the garbage company comes and picks them up.
They can now. It's a cost. That's been the issue.
Like on an extra day, like on a Saturday?
Well, there's ways to set up special days where they all go out at one time. You can call up now and get service at your property now for a fee. And they'll
No, I
pick-
mean at the whole town. So tell
Yeah, I mean,
everybody in the town.
there are ways to
Garbage.
do the one-off approach that have been brought to us by our garbage hauler. We've had some expression of wanting to just drop it off like this, and that's why we try to accommodate it.
But we'd have to increase the franchise fee to 5%. Just had to say that, come on.
This public comment thing's addicting.
All right, thank you for your comment. Chief, you have anything for us? Eric?
Uh-oh.
I'm afraid to say this. Just a reminder, no, it's a good thing. Our annual curbside brush collection throughout the village begins Monday, May 9th. So we'll have it in our Cary News Weekly. As is typical every year, the first week of May, the first full week of May is the week we start that operation, which is the same as all past years. Obviously, this is the second year that we're in that reduced cycle where we're only doing it in the spring and the fall. So residents are reminded, and it'll be part of our Cary News Weekly update that it is starting this next week. It'll take a couple weeks for us to get through the whole village, as it has historically, but first collection in May, next one will be in October.
Do you know how you're going to go through the village? East to west, west to east?
I'll have to double check the operation. I believe we usually started on the north side of the tracks and worked our way south. I'll note that in our release as well.
Great. Thank you.
Then you'll remember, or can you remind all the residents that we can do this all year round if they just cut them up and put it at under 4 feet so that they can cut up their brush?
Yep, that is correct. And it's on our website as well. Advanced Disposal does offer it with your landscape waste pickup every week. Just has to be, like the mayor said, bundled and 4-foot lengths or less. So by all means, this one will come by. We do have size parameters on our website as well. We take a little bit bigger and unbundled on our end. But as far as the volume throughout the year, we encourage people to take advantage of both opportunities.
Thank you, Eric. Jake?
No, sir.
Nothing. Mary? I haven't heard from you in a while.
Oh.
See it in the agenda.
Yeah. Brian, thank you. Okay, any future agenda items and discussion by the village board? I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss real estate, section 2C5, and personnel, section 2C1.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Do you want to have this?